Welcome to the 7th webinar in our series about grazier safety series, presented in conjunction with OV Organic and Grazing BMP. My name is Ros Rees and I'm your facilitator for today. The first 6 webinars in our series are now live on our website, and I'll provide that address at the end of today's session. Please send any questions through at any time during the webinar and we'll endeavour to answer those at the end. Please also take a few minutes to complete the survey which will pop up at the end of the webinar. It provides us with valuable feedback. Any problems with accessing this link, also let me know, and I'll provide an email address at the end. Thank you for joining us for today's session, which will be going through working with WorkCover. Your presenter for today is Courtney Lane, Customer Advisor working in the agriculture industry at WorkCover Queensland. Over to you now, Courtney.
Good afternoon. My name is Courtney Lane and I'm one of the customer advisors in the agricultural industry at WorkCover Queensland. I look after the majority of claims and employers within beef, feedlots and piggeries in Queensland. I have a background in occupational therapy and will be speaking to you today about a little of who we are at WorkCover, who a policy needs to cover, and what to do in the event of a claim. To start with, WorkCover Queensland is a statutory body that sits under the Minister for Employment and Industrial Relations. We work closely with Workplace Health and Safety Queensland, and our decisions are overseen by the Workers' Compensation Regulator. We share a joint website, worksafe.qld.gov.au, and call centre to make it easier for Queenslanders to get information about safety and workers' compensation issues. Under the Workers' Compensation and Rehabilitation Act 2003, all businesses with workers are required to hold a valid insurance policy with WorkCover Queensland for those workers, with the exception of those businesses granted self-insurance. We're proud to have the lowest average premium rate in Australia, ensuring the best cover for our workers at the lowest cost to our employers. So who should you cover? A change in the workers' compensation legislation came into effect on the 1st of July 2013, bringing WorkCover Queensland's definition of a worker into alignment with the Australian Taxation Office. This covers pay-as-you-go, or PAYG, employees and those deemed workers under select contracts of service. A person or individual can also be a worker, even if they hold an ABN or are responsible for their own tax. It is important to make sure that you are declaring wages for any workers, and also to make sure that you aren't declaring wages for anyone that may not be covered. This includes people can be workers even if they are paid as room and board or other goods in lieu of wages. This is a brief rundown of who is covered under your WorkCover policy. Comprehensive information is available on our website under Insurance, Do I Need a Policy? When looking at who to cover, there are many criteria. However, I will run through the ones most commonly seen within the beef industry. To start with, a worker needs to be an individual, so it can't be a member of a business or a company, someone who is working under a contract of service, a pay-as-you-go employee, or perhaps a share farmer if they do not provide farming machinery and receive no more than 1/3 of the farm proceeds. Should they receive more than this, they're not classified as a worker. There are also specific exclusions which are important to note, namely directors of the company, trustees, partners in a partnership, or someone with a Personal Services Business Determination, or PSBD, from the ATO. These are not common, and if someone has one, they will let you know. The easiest way to determine if someone is a worker or a contractor is to utilise the Employee Contractor Decision tool on the ATO website. It is simple and easy to use and can assist with classifying whether someone is a worker or contractor and therefore whether you didn't need to declare wages for them. It can also be beneficial to review the tool when employing to know whether the employee is likely to be a worker or contractor for insurance purposes. If you are unsure, I am always happy to run through the tool with you. My contact details will be on the slide at the end and you're welcome to call or email. We'll now run through an example commonly seen within the beef industry. So a musterer is quite common and they may be commonly contracted during the season. When considering whether a musterer is an employee or a contractor, The things to consider is that they will often operate under their own ABN. They're usually paid a set daily rate for their services and often cannot delegate out their work or pay others to do the mustering in their place. They will usually also supply their own equipment, which is usually a horse. Using the ATO Australian Tax Office tool, they're actually considered a worker because they do not provide tools of the trade over $1,000. This may be different if they muster using a bike or helicopter. Unfortunately, a horse is not considered a tool of the trade as it is an animal. They're usually also not liable for rectifying damage, and they cannot delegate out the work to others, and it is under the instruction of the owners regarding how the mustering is to be done. Under certain contracts, they may be considered a contractor. Say, for example, if they were able to delegate out the work and were liable for rectifying damage, or if they perhaps used a bike, a ute, or even a helicopter to muster, as these are considered tools of the trade and would definitely fulfill the criteria as A, heavy machinery, and also be over the $1,000 limit. Please see the activity provided. The links would have been available at the start of the presentation and will also be emailed out following the webinar. This is a take-home activity to assist with determining who is a worker and who is a contractor. There is also an attached sheet which goes through who is a contractor and a worker. In a few weeks, the answers will be provided, and if you have any questions, you're able to call to clarify. If you're concerned that you may have additional workers to declare or have been over-declaring your wages for people who may not be considered workers, please do not hesitate to contact me and we can definitely review and adjust if required. The next subject I will touch on is premium. Over the past 2 years, we've done a complete overhaul in the way that premium is calculated. We've created a rating system for small businesses to reduce any fluctuations which may occur in the event of a claim, and have also provided larger companies with more opportunity to reduce their premium with successful claims management. One system is for under $1.5 million in wages, and the other is for over $1.5 million in wages. For under $1.5 million, there is now a rating system 1 to 5, with a rating 1 paying 80% of the industry rate, and a rating 5 paying 120% of the industry rate. The maximum you can move in any one financial year is 1 rating, which is equivalent to 10% of the industry rate. This means in the event of a claim, it is much simpler to budget and understand how the claim may affect your premium. If you have no claims in the financial year, you automatically drop 1 rating, which is a saving of 10% of the industry rate. There is also a $500 claims cost buffer for any minor claims, meaning that the first $500 spent in a financial year will not impact your premium. Employers paying more than $1.5 million in wages have their premium calculated using a wages by rate formula called evidence-based rating. This is calculated using 3 factors: your declared wages, your claims experience, and the industry experience. These policies reflect 4 years of claims experience, 3 years of statutory claims, and 1 year of common law. So what happens if there's a claim? In the instance an injury occurs, the best step is to encourage timely reporting. The earlier a claim is lodged, the earlier a decision can be made and treatment can be provided. This ultimately gives the injury the best chance of recovery and can dramatically reduce the amount of time off required before a clearance to return to work. It is also beneficial to maintain a good relationship with the employee so that they continue to feel part of the team while they are off work. Creating a supportive culture for your workers can really impact their attitudes to return and reduce the amount of time off in claims. Also, providing suitable duties where possible allows for an earlier return to work and creates the attitude that just because someone has been injured doesn't mean they have to be at home. There are often many safe tasks for someone to do while they recover. It is a great idea to make a list of lighter duties available on the property to provide to doctors when the worker attends to give them a better idea of your station and what is available. This slide highlights the importance of return to work. After 20 days, the likelihood of ever returning to work for a worker falls to 70%. This drops to 45 days after 45 days to 50%, and after 70 days, only just over 2 months, it falls to only a 35% chance of ever returning to work. This can be for a number of reasons and isn't just due to the severity of the injury. The psychological impacts of being off work for this amount of time can be severe and can impact on their confidence to return to work, even if they make a full recovery and can. This is why we promote an early return to work, even on light duties, at reduced hours, or even in host employment, as it is more beneficial than being off work. This is the new Work Capacity Certificate, which was released in July 2016. The certificate focuses on what workers can do rather than what they can't. The top part of the certificate goes through the basic details of the worker and the injury, and then any treatment required, and then finally their capacity for work. This will be one of 3 things: either totally unfit to work, a full clearance to return to normal duties, or a clearance for lighter duties, which then will detail any of the restrictions in the boxes below. The restrictions listed on a certificate will outline what types of suitable duties they can perform and are a great starting point to look at whether light duties will be possible. It will also usually provide a time frame for return to normal duties so that it can be planned on how many suitable duties you may have available and whether that will be enough. As previously mentioned, a stay-at-work approach or early return to work is the best outcome. Usually after an injury, someone may not be able to return to their normal duties straight away, so we would look at lighter or suitable duties. These are developed with all parties, including yourselves, the doctors, the worker, and us. Lighter duties don't always have to be in their normal roles and can even be supervising or assisting other staff members. There are many benefits to suitable duties. It reduces the workload on other staff, assists the worker to regain their strength to return to normal duties, and socially, it keeps the worker involved and contributes to the productivity of the business. When looking at suitable duties, the first step is to think about what jobs there are on the property. I have attached a copy of our Beef Suitable Duties Checklist, which is a list of potential tasks at the start of this presentation. This can be personalized to fit your own station. Once you have a list of available duties, you then compare this to any restrictions the worker may have. This will be listed on their medical certificate. However, we are always able to get more information from the doctors and physiotherapists if needed. We are able to assist with this process and can also arrange for an occupational therapist to attend the site to assist with identifying suitable duties and developing a return to work plan. I understand that many stations may be quite regional and remote from towns. However, we can definitely arrange this as many occupational therapists will travel regularly to different towns. At all times, it is best to focus on what the worker can do and look for tasks that fit within those restrictions rather than looking at what they can't do. We also need to look at what restrictions they are able to do, whether they need to start with less days or hours, and then finally how we would upgrade the suitable duties plan to return them back to normal duties. Here we have an example of a suitable duties template. These are available on our website, and I am happy to send one through if you're interested. We also have the suitable duties checklist, which I mentioned before, which can be given to the doctor and has many options for light duties listed. So they can simply tick what duties the worker is able to do, and that can actually act in place of a suitable duties template because you can just follow what those tasks are. As an activity to assist with identifying duties, you have been provided with a suitable duties activity sheet, which lists different injuries and space to write duties which could accommodate the restrictions relating to that. So for example, one may be an upper limb injury and the types of duties someone may be able to do if say for example, they've injured their left arm and they're right-handed. In a few weeks, an answer sheet will be provided. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to call and I'm happy to go through different options. There are also many options to support a return to work. We can look at what we call supernumerary payments, where we continue to cover the cost of wages so that they can return to doing light duties if these duties aren't contributing to their normal role. It basically places them as an extra staff member within the business. It's usually for short periods, sort of up to a maximum of 6 weeks, but can sometimes be just enough to allow them to start to rebuild strength so that they can return to doing more productive work. We can also look at partial payment for wages while they're at reduced hours, or even full hours if, again, their duties are quite limiting to contributing to the business. Or even host employment, where duties cannot be sourced on the property, where we look at a different employer to provide them duties until they're able to return. Host employment is usually sourced through our Recover at Work, or RAW employers. These employers have policies with WorkCover Queensland, and they volunteer to offer light duties to workers recovering from injury. These employers are able to select which workers they place. The workers' wages are paid by WorkCover, so there is no cost to the RAW or Recover at Work employer. And WorkCover also absorbs liability for any injury that may occur while on the host placement. And there is also no obligation to hire the worker at the end of the placement. There is a video available on our website about Clinton Benson. He was in the construction industry and sustained a severe injury. Fortunately, he was able to commence suitable duties with a host employer, which then led to a new role. We ensure that workers participating in the RAW program are a good fit. At all times, you are in control of the placement and are able to adjust or terminate if required. Particularly in the agricultural industry, it can be very difficult to source a host employment, and if you're willing, there is an opportunity to really help people who genuinely really just want to get back to work. We are always really eager to have new host employers, and if it's something that you may be interested in, please let us know and we can give you a little bit more detail and you can see if it's something that would fit your business. Finally, when looking at what to do in the event of a claim, lodging a claim is quick and easy. The best way to lodge is online at worksafe.qld.gov.au. However, you can also lodge by phone, fax, post, or sometimes the doctor will send through the medical certificate first. It is best to notify us of an injury within 8 business days. We then have up to 20 business days to determine the claim. However, we aim to be much faster than this. During the determination of a claim, we gather information from yourself, the worker, and any medical information to review whether the claim is able to be accepted. Once the claim has been accepted, we're able to cover reasonable medical expenses and weekly benefits if they're unable to work. As just mentioned, it is the best way to lodge a new claim is online. We also have a dedicated employer site known as WorkCover Connect. It is simple to be set up for the service and allows you information on your policy and any claims, not just current claims, but any claims that your policy has ever had. You're able to submit documents through this portal, ask questions, and review costs and correspondence on claims between you and the customer advisor or the person determining the claim. You can also declare wages through the same portal. If you would like to be set up for WorkCover Connect, or you would like to know your login details if you've used it before but may have forgotten, please do not hesitate to contact me on the details that will be provided shortly. We are always here to help and have set up many tools to assist you with managing injured workers, return to work, and your policy. We have regular webinars available. In this series, our next webinar on the 7th of March will cover common law claims and will be presented by one of our panel solicitors. It is a great opportunity to gain more information about common law claims and what you can do to prevent and prepare for a claim. We are also able to do what's known as premium forecasting as well, where we can have a chat at how a claim may impact your premium and what it would look like over time as well in the years to come. Thank you for your time today. I hope I've given you some useful information about who we are and what we do. My contact details are now on the screen, and I am always happy to have a chat about any questions you may have. At WorkCover, we're available as much as you need us and really enjoy working with our employers. We are regularly out visiting different areas, and if you would like us to, are happy to come out to visit to get to know your business. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Courtney. So we have time for some questions now, and I have a couple here for you, Courtney. So the question is, if I have children and grandchildren who occasionally work on my property, do I need to have a policy for them?
Yes. So you do need to have a policy for any children or grandchildren working on the property, even if they may not be paying a wage and they might be given like a room or board in place of that. They are considered workers, and it is really important that they do have cover, I guess, in the event of an injury. They would be found to be workers, and that way we would be able to cover their medical expenses as well. So I guess it's a peace of mind. Even if you're not paying a lot of wages, so you may be paying them only a few $100s a year, we have what's known as a minimum policy. This is only $290 a year, and that basically covers you in the event of any injury to one of your family members that may be working on the property, and can be a really good idea. Thanks,
Courtney. And is there an age limit to who that would cover with your children?
Yes. So if with your children, they do need to be classified as a worker, so they need to be of working age. So I believe that's 14 and 9 months at the moment, but it would be in line with whatever the criteria are for that. There's no top end though.
Okay, that's great. Thanks, Courtney. And just another one here. We have a very small property and only hire people for mustering. Yep. So we don't have any suitable duties. So what would we do if we had an injured worker?
Okay, so and that does happen sometimes, particularly if it is a small property. What we would work with is when the claim had come through, so if there was an injury, we would be working right at the start to try and source some host employment somewhere nearby the property. Sometimes I can understand that can be hard if it's several hundred kilometres between different areas, but we do everything that we can, and we just regularly liaise with the doctors to see if perhaps there are maybe exercises they could be doing at home to rebuild that strength in place of suitable duties, or if we can't get a different employer to assist.
Okay, that's great. There's another question coming in.
Yeah.
So the line between a contractor and a worker is pretty blurred. Sometimes my contractors will bring tools for work above $1,000 in value, but then also sometimes they're not. It is a partnership type contracting business. How can this be managed?
Yep. Okay, it would be, so there is that question of if they're bringing tools of the trade over $1,000, that's only one part of what would determine whether someone was a worker or a contractor. If everything else was in line with they were likely to be a worker, say for example, they're not able to delegate out to other musterers, and they're not liable for rectifying any damage and things like that, it is quite likely that they would still be a worker. So it's sort of a combination of all of those factors, which is why we are always really happy to go through the ATO decision tool, because generally that one thing won't be what will change a worker or a contractor, it will be the whole picture. But if whoever has asked that question, if you would like to give me a call, I'm more than happy to go through and run through the tool with you, and we can see what it comes out at for your specific business.
Thanks, Courtney. On the screen now we have the contact details for WorkCover Queensland and for Courtney. So that's her phone number and her email address. And I'll be sending out the attachments that were provided for today, and I'll send Courtney's contact details out in an email to all the registrants following the webinar. So as I mentioned, all the webinars are now available on the website, and the two from WorkCover will also be available in the next few weeks. So the website is www.worksafe.qld.gov.au.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Ros, I'll just jump in as well. I've just seen another question there with what is the best way to manage a claim when the worker hasn't reported the incident or injury until several weeks after the event. This is actually quite a common question that we get, and unfortunately it does happen. It does make things more difficult because we're not always aware of the injury, which means that, sometimes their return to work early hasn't been able to be achieved, and also they may not have had the treatment that they need. Quite often you can see this sometimes with someone that's cut their finger and then it's become infected, and it's obviously taken time to do that, and all of a sudden now they've got quite a serious injury, whereas it might have been something minor to begin with as well. So the best advice we can do then is, if someone has not notified about an injury until several weeks after, is to try to gather as much information about what's happened back then, maybe statements from anyone that might have been there, because that will assist with the determination of our claim. But then also trying to get information as quickly as possible from the doctors. So making sure that they have seen a doctor now and that there's a clear treatment plan so that we can get the ball rolling as quickly as possible, even though it may be a few weeks after the injury. We do also investigate and look into these types of claims as well, particularly if there's been a lot of time between the injury. Sometimes they're quite straightforward and there's a really simple explanation why, but in those cases where it really isn't clear and there may not have been any witnesses, we can also get information from our doctors just to make sure that everything's consistent with the type of injury and what's been sustained compared to what they've said happened.
And Courtney, there's another question here. If the worker doesn't want to go through WorkCover, what's the best thing for the employer to do?
Look, what you can do is still lodge a notification only claim, which is basically, it's not a full claim, it's just a notification that an injury has happened to that person. That basically is all that you need to do. At the end of the day, it is their choice as to whether they wish to go through WorkCover or not. If they don't wish to go through us, you're not liable for any of those costs. And they would need to understand that any of their medical treatment or time off would need to be covered either through their sick leave or their own pocket, I guess, for any medical treatment. They do have a 6-month period to lodge a claim after an injury. So once they've seen the doctor, that 6-month period starts. If they don't choose to lodge a claim within that time frame, quite often it means that the claim wouldn't be one for acceptance with us anyway. And so we usually recommend to people that it's best to lodge it so that it's there, even if it's quite simple and they go back quickly. But at the end of the day, it is their choice, and if they choose not to do it, that's fine.
Okay, thanks, Courtney. And as we said, look, if you have questions and you need more clarification about some of these issues that you have, do contact Courtney, and she'd be more than happy to help you and talk through any of the situations you might have. We have 3 e-safes dedicated to rural industry through the year, which you can subscribe to as well, and you can do that through the worksafe.qld.gov.au website. And keep an eye out, as Courtney mentioned, for the next webinar from WorkCover, which will be on the 7th of March. And thank you very much for attending today's webinar. And as I mentioned, I'll send out the templates to all the registrants, and we look forward to talking to you at the next webinar.